Okay, well, we're a minute behind, but it's 5:01, and I'm going to call this Lacey City Council and State Legislators Special Meeting to order. Right now, we have one council member attending remotely. Is it?
Councilor Vasquez has a Board of Health meeting, but she will attend remote for the work session.
So, okay. So all our Deputy Mayor, Councilmember Greenstein, Councilmember Cox, Councilmember Stedman, and Councilmember Dunning, and myself are present. I also would like to acknowledge that we, the City of Lacey, are on the ancestral land of the tribal people of the Treaty of Medicine Creek, including the Nisqually Indian Tribe and the Squaxin Indian Tribe. And with that, can I get a motion to approve our agenda?
Move to approve the agenda. Move to approve the agenda as published.
Second.
Moving in second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Then that motion unanimously carries. We have approved agenda. And well, let's jump right into it because I know, Lisa, you got to get out of here as soon as possible. So, public comment, you're right, I'm sorry. Next is public comment. Is there anyone wishing to address the council for the special meeting? Okay, go ahead. Yeah, please go to the, sorry about that. Please introduce yourself, and you have a 3-minute timer.
So, good evening, everyone. My name is Katrina Stensgaard. I live in the city of Lacey. One of the reasons that I live in the city of Lacey was after I left the military in 2014, I wanted to live somewhere that had ties to the military in a great state, and Lacey it is. Unfortunately, as I've stayed in Lacey, I feel like there's a lack of support services for veterans. And then also I recently heard about the Lacey Veterans Hub.
Yes.
And Keith Looker not being a part of it. And so I would like to know, what is the plan to replace decades of institutional knowledge, at least 9 years of institutional knowledge since I've been here? One of the things that I do is I help veterans with barriers such as like homelessness or trauma from transition or just trauma from being in the military. I connect them to social services and also get them job ready. And the Veterans Hub is one of the places that I regularly go because I go where the veterans are. I'm concerned about what the plan is for the Lacey Veterans Hub. I know when I'm working with veterans, I have a real hard time connecting to sources in Thurston County. I do a better job or I have better success connecting in Pierce County, which since half the people on base that are in the military currently live in Thurston County, and this is a great place to retire after you've served. I just want to make sure that veterans aren't falling through the cracks.
Great, thank you. I will follow up with you. We'll follow up with you.
I can get her contact.
And we'll get your contact information, and I'll be a part of that conversation too.
All right, thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to address? Seeing none, now let's go into our first agenda item, and I'm going to turn it over to Brian, right?
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I will mic on and turn it on. Thank you, distinguished members of our legislative delegation. Thanks for being here. We're looking forward to having a conversation, and we'll try to be as quick as possible about what we're hoping to accomplish this legislative session. But first, we were hoping to hear from you, because sometimes when we don't do that, we get in our own way. But we want to kind of hear some of your insights and some of your priorities. And we think as that conversation goes along, there might be opportunities to interject how some of the things that we're thinking about either complement that or align that. So if it's appropriate.
Start with Lisa, because I know she's got to get going.
Actually, I've gotten a little grace from my mayor, so I would like to start with the more senior members.
Okay, I didn't know you have to go too.
Green. There we go. Okay. Hey, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Lacey City Council, wonderful city of Lacey, Andrew Barkas, your state representative, 2nd District. I appreciate that, yes. We are in our committee week this week at the Ledge. This is our kind of pre-session, pre-funk, all the stuff we got to do. Lots of fun, especially for new members who are just having a blast, trying to figure out where everything's at. I do have another event that I'm chairing tonight, so I have to be downtown at 5:45. But it's always great to meet with you all. I know we stay in contact throughout the year, so that's a really great thing. Brian does a great job. We talk a lot, and I just want to let you know that your priorities are our priorities. So we want to make sure that we work together, great delegation together, to make sure that we can do that. I am continuing in my role as a ranking member on the Transportation Committee. So I will be working on all things transportation. This is our biennial budget. What's that? Yeah. Talk about that. All things, it's a big budget cycle this year. I'll talk about that real quick. And also in the Housing Committee, a lot of policy still on the supply side, introducing quite a bit of landlord-tenant policy that I'm working on, a lot of bipartisan work, trying to solve a lot of the bigger issues that the state's facing. In the transportation arena, of course, if you're watching the news and hearing the headlines, budget, crisis. The good news is it's not quite as bad in the transportation arena. We do have declining revenues. We're dealing with some different things. We're good in the next couple of years. It's the out years that are very challenging for us. And what's driving that is our capital projects. As you all know, in the city, you're facing the same thing. Costs are going up just exponentially for a myriad of reasons. And that is really putting a pinch on the limited amounts of revenue that we have. We're committed to finishing the things that we started, like the Connecting Washington projects and such, and also things that we've committed to. With regards to things here locally, I know that as a priority, I-5 continues to be our priority. We are working on that from Mounts Road all the way down to Tumwater. A lot of improvements, including the Nisqually Delta. That is a project I've championed since day one and will continue to do that. I will tell you, you're going to have to do a lot of work to continue advocating for that. It is going to be challenging just because that's part of the Move Ahead package, and that package is going to face some serious funding challenges. Any project that is in the queue that is not queued up with a bid and construction costs and everything else is going to be looked at as something that might have to be slowed down or paused. I'm not saying that is going to happen with that, but it is a potential. Now, the thing with that is it is moving, and there is dollars being spent to complete the environmental work and all the pre-work so that we can go out for some federal assistance for the broader thing. But once we start the next thing, then we're really committing to the actual issue. And that, along with many other projects throughout the state that are in that same status, we have to take a hard look at to see what we're going to do as we look at how we solve some of these immediate short-term issues that we're facing. So the budget is going to be challenging. It starts day one for me on the budget cabinet, and we just have a lot of work to do. We will be talking about different things. I have been meeting with the cities and all my communities and talking because I know that you're facing a lot of the similar issues that we are, which is really interesting in a time that we've had just incredible economic good fortunes. It's a clash of the costs and what we're seeing and what's driving these costs. So we're also trying to get at what is causing these ever-escalating costs. But on your priorities list, as we look at this, I can tell you that we've talked about quite a few of these things. I would agree with your number one situation. I know that has turned into quite a not the best situation as intended. We had a housing meeting today. Commerce did do a presentation about permanent supportive housing and some of the different things. We will have a further conversation. I will follow up on this personally to make sure that this is addressed, because this is not just happening here in our community. It's happening in communities throughout the state. This is part of a solution, but it is not the solution. So it is something that I am concerned about. The other areas, of course, we'll continue to talk about, see how they work within the context of the capital budget. Capital budget request forms just came out, so I'm sure our staffs will send them out to you, and we can talk more about various things that you might want to talk about with the capital budget. But with that, happy to answer any questions before I kick it over to my esteemed colleague, Representative Dolio.
I guess my only question on the long-term funding for transportation, where do you see
Sure.
that happening, right? We know the gas tax is diminishing returns. So how do you replace that
Sure.
or enhance it or?
Well, as most of you know, we've been studying for a long time the road usage charge. There will be legislation introduced this session with regards to some of the first phases of implementation. The gas tax is declining, but it's not. I'm part of the Budget Forecast Council, and we just had our briefings and such. It's not what you would expect. It's not a drop. It's a decline over a period of time. But there are actually other fees and such that kind of make up for that. So there's like this little thing, and then it kind of does this. But it is not enough of a sustainable revenue source. The road usage charge is something that hopefully at some point will be a replacement for the gas tax, but it's not going to happen today or tomorrow or even in the next 4 to 5 years. Still a lot of talk about what it's going to cost to implement it, some of the policies behind it, and what it will generate. Will it be enough to be sufficient? So we're looking at that. We are looking at the gas tax. We're looking at all sorts of other aspects. But I will tell you what I'm going to be focusing on. Cover your ears. We have the Climate Commitment Act, and I know that money that has been generated through that tax and that fee, we've established that now. The voters have spoken, and the initiative was overturned, so it is upheld. And as you all know, it is a significant source of revenue for transportation. It's how it is used and where it is applied. And so there will be conversations about the utilization of those funds, still taking, of course, into consideration all of the intent of that with the reduction of carbon and the climate as it is intended to address that. But it is a revenue source. And electric cars and electric buses travel on roads, and roads are failing. And we have a lot of maintenance and issues and things that we need to deal with. So there are ways within the budget and how we do that to utilize various accounts, supplanting things and moving things around. So it's going to be a big conversation and a challenging one because we do have, the intended use of it. There are a lot of demands, and of course, but it is a significant revenue source. And so as we look at that, we should know numbers from this last auction, I think, tomorrow. So, and the auction was as projected, it doubled what they had anticipated or what was projected even back before the initiative. So, so that is one of those things, Andy, and there are other things that we need to look at. What you will hear me say a lot this session is that I am not in support of another revenue transportation package in the vein of what we have done in the past. I think those days are gone. What I am in support of is long-term sustainable revenue for transportation that we can count on for projects, maintenance, preservation, and the things that the state needs to keep moving. So that'll be my focus.
Great. Any other questions? The only other thing is obviously when you're looking at Mounts Road through Tumwater, I think one of the things that maybe we need to get better at focusing on is what are the trips that's on the project, right? How many daily trips are being affected? And then what would be the difference if the project was completed on the efficiency? And so if you look at this section of I-5, I don't think there is another project that could help, with that many trips available per day at servicing. I don't know how many other projects can claim that.
Yeah,
So.
it's a good fact. I had a great meeting with Mark Daly and my good friends over there at the planning. We talked quite a bit. They've done a lot of great work. We've supported them in their work to be able to do that research. People in Spokane will argue with you. People up north will. I mean,
Sure.
Everybody's project is the most important. Sure. But you cannot deny what we have seen. I have been back in this beautiful community for almost 30 years now. my business has been located back in this beautiful community for 1 year now, celebrating that. So very happy to be back in Lacey. But it is, you just can't deny it by being on the freeway and the design and how it functions throughout the entire transportation system here, and how everything's interconnected. So yes, it is incredibly important that we do that. Unfortunately, too much was focused on, there were too many other things focused on as opposed to capacity for too long. And so the word that I will continue to use is priorities. We must prioritize the things that are important to keep people moving, and Interstate 5, especially through this part of the region, is incredibly important. I'm proud of the work that we've done just north of here, that we did all that here recently. We've committed to that. That next phase is going to be completed here fairly soon, and we'll have a significant impact on opening that up. Unfortunately, it's all great until you get down to the river, and it's just like it has been right there at JBLM. When it goes back down, we see what happens. You flow great, and then it bottlenecks up. So we have to make sure the entire system is working in that manner. So we'll continue to work on that.
Great. And we look forward to working with you, and obviously
Yeah.
I'll see you on the TRPC side here
Yeah.
shortly as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But great. And I want to tell you, we're excited to have a new member of our delegation in the 22nd. We've had a few conversations. We're going to talk more to make sure that she has all the success she needs. Representative Dolio and I have become better friends every day.
Had some nice times.
We've had we've had some good times, and the great thing is that we actually we do work together well. We when it comes to the things that are important to our communities here in Thurston County and Lacey and everything, we do, and we do work as a team, and it doesn't matter about our other differences. We focus on our commonalities and the things that we can do together. So
Love to hear.
and we'll continue to do that.
Great. Anything else? Beth?
Well, it's great to see all of you, and thank you for, being council members. I know it's a lot of work, and Lacey is such a great place to live, and also to have a business. My husband has a business here, and really does appreciate the city of Lacey. So, glad to be here tonight. I did have some committee changes. I am remaining as the chair of Environment and Energy, but I am on state government now as opposed to labor and workforce standards. So that's a big. It's state government and tribal relations. So that's a big move. And I'm also on appropriations. So I'm leaving my good friend here on the Transportation Committee and heading to appropriations. I did unfortunately stay for that briefing yesterday where we did look at the, significant reduction in our transportation funding that we were facing. So, but I have a lot of faith in Representative Barkas and Representative Fye. They work really well together. It's a very bipartisan committee, and, that is just something that we all agree on. We got to keep our folks moving. So, I am, part of my focus this year will be on education funding. It's part of the reason I wanted to be on APROPS. I'm very committed to working to sort of make sure that the way that we're funding education is a little bit fairer. We work closely with our superintendents in North Thurston and Olympia Tumwater, and so that'll be a focus of mine. Housing, although I'm not on the housing committee, from an appropriation standpoint, definitely am committed to working to make sure that we do, not leave the cities that have committed to helping to solve that crisis in a unfortunate situation without funding to continue the programs that we've been standing up. I will also be continuing to work on moving us towards a clean energy economy. We're making a lot of progress in that space, in the transportation sector, in the electric grid. So we'll be, transmission is a huge bottleneck. And so we'll be focusing in the Environment Committee on working towards trying to release some of those bottlenecks while also making sure that, our Eastern Washington colleagues are, part of that conversation. And, a lot of the utility scale solar and wind is, is happening in Eastern Washington, and it's working as closely as possible with my ranking and other members on the committee to stand up policies that actually have the West Side doing more of our share through distributed energy projects. So really looking for least conflict areas to build these so that we're taking some of the pressure off of our Eastern Washington communities. So that'll be a big focus of the Environment Committee. And, again, citing, once you get past the transmission, you also have to cite these things, and so we'll be doing some tweaks in that space as well. Yeah, those are sort of those are the priorities that I'll be working on. I'm sure there will be some state government priorities. I don't really know that portfolio at all, but I'm kind of excited to start learning and see what we can do there.
Okay.
So,
Well, thank you. I'm sure you're aware of our top priorities here as well. Obviously, for Lacey, from the get-go, when it came to Maple Court, that was always our intention to have that permanent supportive housing.
Right.
And, the dollars came through and we didn't object, but, that was a project that has always been intended, because it's been our experience, if you have a low barrier and you put as many people as we have in one place, you need a lot more support
yeah.
to sort of do that. And I don't think that's a good number anyway. It needs to probably be more in like the 30 range or something like that, if you're going to have that many people with very low barriers. So unfortunately, the state spent a bunch of money to rehab it, to do this, and now we're going to have to go back and spend a bunch more money to rehab it all over again to go to the next phase. So hopefully the state will continue to help us there. Yeah.
I just want to add a couple of things on that one. I spoke to you, Beth, and
Right.
Andrew, and several others about a year ago about some of my concerns at Maple Court. They've not been alleviated in any sense of the matter. The place is an absolute disaster, in my personal opinion. I'm really concerned. The state committed to the money to turn that into permanent supportive housing. The time now is now for the state to actually pony up that money, and I know there's going to be some budget issues. State's got to find a way to do that. Not in addition to money to keep it running. I mean, you committed, you guys put it there, you stuck it in Lacey without us having any real say at the table. We need the state to do their job now and make sure the money's there to continue running it and increase the budget for it, because they need more support. They don't have the support they need. It's becoming just an absolute mess. The money that was spent to rehab the buildings can all have to be spent again, because they've allowed incessant drug use. There's no rules in place at all to stop drug use. So all of that remediation work that did because of prior meth use is all going to have to be done again to get that ready for supportive housing. So we're counting on you guys to step up.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I know you get this. I know you understand this.
Well, I mean, and I am the board chair of New Horizon Communities, formerly Quixote, and, we don't allow that. Right?
Lehigh's not doing their job,
Right.
frankly.
And so I mean, and I just did, all three of our villages, two of them are only veterans.
Yeah.
I mean, it's totally working.
Yeah.
I spent 3 hours at all three facilities. The one that is the most challenging is the one that's not veterans, that is, and it also has a lower AMI. But even with that, we have 2 case managers, we have on-site mental health, it's a lot of support.
Very different.
It is very different.
That's the model we'd love to have.
Yeah.
That's
So,
what we're asking for, exactly.
Bring it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Totally support it.
I
We
think
we
it's-
want to help people. It's not that we don't want to help people.
Yeah.
It's that what's
But
happening
there
there
has
is
to
not
be
helping
some
anyone.
accountability and rules and regulations and.
Exactly.
And,
And
you know,
especially when you get to the population numbers that we're at, over 100 people,
Right.
you're going to have problems with 100 people interacting.
Anywhere.
Anywhere,
Even if
right?
you're not,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you know.
But
But
yes.
it was never, if I may,
Yeah,
I started the Right Away Initiative.
yeah.
You and I had a conversation many, many years ago, and it kind of started the whole process. And then the governor took it to the next piece with using the Housing Trust Fund to do this. I was in support of, but never completely in support of this model. For the simple fact, as I heard as I walked back in, excuse me, I've been fighting a little head cold. That's done, but it's still there. When you have no barrier, you're not solving the problem. You're taking the problem that was underneath the overpass and you're putting it into a pretty nice building, which used to be a nice building. We're spending a tremendous amount of money on management, quote unquote, to do this. So we do need to readdress this, and we do need to address it from the state's perspective. It should not fall on the city of Lacey's responsibility to do that, just because it's located here. We're seeing this in other areas. This is not, and
Right.
we're going to see legislation to make this more prevalent. And so before I get on board with supporting things to do this particular model, the model needs to change. The funding needs to change, but the model needs to change. It's not fair for those who are actually trying to change their lives and live in that environment to be subjected to what's going to put them back in the environment again. And that is happening too much. And so, but it also has a direct impact on our community, on the business community, on the residential, everything else that's going on here. We're seeing that. And so, you know, it is never the intent for the out of sight, out of mind. You know, just because we drive down the freeway and we see rocks in place of tents, the problem has not gone away. The problem has gotten worse throughout the region.
It's just been
It's just been
concentrated.
concentrated. And so we will be working on that. And in housing today, as I said, in the housing committee, we had some briefings and we talked a little bit about some of these different programs. We have a lot of questions, and we're going to pursue some answers, and if it takes some different legislation. But I think the biggest thing that we need to do is we do agree on the need for additional support, additional mental health, additional drug and rehab. We have to have these. The problem has been, you know, as I said, created, gotten worse, so it's going to take more to do that. But those resources are not as readily available as you would think. And so, you know, I think that's a commitment all the way around.
Yeah.
We'd love to sit down when we have some more time and talk about some lessons learned here.
Yeah.
Because we need this to be successful. My biggest worry when I found out that we weren't going forward with permanent supportive housing, we're going with this model, is that if this failed in Lacey at this location, we were going to have a very, very hard time convincing anyone in our area that we want to do more of this, even permanent supportive housing, because they don't see they don't understand the difference. And we have seen that backlash. We get stuff all the time. And so I think there's some lessons learned about this. You know, there can be a small portion of a lower barrier, but you can't get anywhere close to the numbers we're at. It just doesn't functionally work.
Right.
Unless you put a ton more resources, and then that's
It's
that's
not gonna happen.
no.
Yeah. And again, these are shared lessons with other communities, and that's already been the problem. So, you know, when you get in a situation where we're creating this, you're right, it makes it much more difficult to replicate or duplicate anywhere else, because these other communities are seeing the exact same thing. And unfortunately, we saw that before you opened your facility. We already knew this in certain things, and what we were saying is, look, this is not going to be the case. The other part of that has to happen, and the reason why we still have that horrific situation on Martin Way between our two cities, between Olympia and Lacey, right, is because when you do put those things on and off list versus people elect not to. And so I still believe that we have to, in the legislature, and we have to as communities, have a broader discussion about what it means to remove the option to remain in those type of situations or to continue to be in a lifestyle that is part of that. And that's a tough one. That is really at the crux of it, because that's what is that barrier, no barrier conversation. And it's like, well, you can't do that. And it's like, okay, but we're doing many things to try to get them to that place, but we're really not getting them where they need to be, so.
Well, we're excited about, Nisqually's,
Yeah.
You're excited about what?
Nisqually's
Medicated treatments.
Medicaid
Oh,
Treatment
yeah.
Center.
Oh, yeah. I can't
we-
believe how fast that went up.
Yeah, and we need,
Wow.
trust me, we'll need more of that too, because it's our experiences, and unless for people who want to get off of their addiction, you have to replace it with medically assisted treatment, period. Like, it's almost impossible for people who've been on long-term drug addiction they can't just say, oh, I'm not going to be it tomorrow, right? It's a long, long process with you have to have medically assisted treatment, you have to have all the other things that go along with that, or it's just not successful.
And you need safe places to live.
Absolutely.
When you're going through that
Totally,
process.
absolutely, totally.
Where there's an expectation that you're not,
Yeah,
that you're working on.
yeah.
Yeah, we did a lot of really good work, and you're exactly right. You have to have the other piece of that.
Have to.
Because if you're doing all that, and truly, when people decide they want to, then they have to have a place that's safe for them to live.
Yep.
And this is a
Absolutely.
great opportunity, but you're not going to take somebody that's doing that and put them in a situation that they're going to be exposed to that again.
Yeah.
Because the odds are stacked against them, absolutely stacked against
The
them.
odds are stacked
So,
against them from day
period.
one.
I mean, it already is, but anyway.
Yeah. Okay,
With that, I need to excuse myself.
and I know, Lisa, you gotta go here pretty quick too.
I would just add a little to this conversation, which is great. I was actually sitting here as you guys were talking, trying to decide, we actually don't have a no barrier system right now, except for our shelters. So all of our villages have some type of barrier. Like Quinn Street, there can't be any active warrants for any sex crimes of any kind or violence. And they do have to be drug-free and alcohol-free. So I'm just trying to think, in Olympia, we've already moved that way. And as a, state, I've heard from other jurisdictions as I've been running for this office that you're not alone. Some of these models don't work, and we've learned through the School of Hard Knocks, accountability is super important. I told you about the journey to jobs.
Yes.
Which I think we need to, when the budget settles out, expand statewide. 130 of our residents have gone through it, 80% in full-time jobs. So successful that we're even talking about, is there a time limit they can be in these tiny home villages before they have to contribute 30% of whatever income?
Yep.
Whatever income. Is there a moment that we need to do that? And I think those are the conversations as a state we need to have. And I overheard, I don't know if you heard this, but I heard a rumbling about a homelessness task force. And I'm going to raise my hand, because I think we've got a lot of little pilot studies happening all over Washington and Oregon on these things, lessons learned, things that have worked, things that have not worked, that we should, pull it all together. Because why fund another pilot study? We've been doing it, and we've spent all this money on it. And I can guarantee you, your number one is Olympia's. And I know it's Tumwater's. So, I hear you.
Great.
And I'm getting it tonight, again, because we're going over our legislative agenda. I got put on healthcare, and I also got put on finance, and I'm the vice chair of local government. And local government they pulled the GMA into local government, which is new.
Good.
All of GMA.
Yep.
Some of it was.
Wow,
but now-
that's a great change.
It's a big change. So I just wanted to give you a little what I've learned in the finance, because the appropriations is one side of the budget,
Yeah.
finance is the revenue stream. And we got our forecast, and not quite the year in review, because it's only, the numbers go to November. But one of the major problems is the revenue growth. If you compare 2023, state revenue growth was about 5.6%. At this point, we're 1.8%.
That's where we're at too, right?
But the forecast was much better than I thought. and are the economists that did this, and I forget the name of the group, help me, that does this for the state. They were actually showing in 2026, 2027 that we're going to start pulling back out of this low revenue. But we have a big unknown of what's going to happen
Tariffs.
with the federal government and tariffs. There's so many unknowns right now. They kind of said, well, if everything stays steady and nothing rocks the boat, this is where we're going to be in 2026 and 2027. So there's a little bit of wiggle room and a big squiggle in front of some of these long-term projections. But it's also why, very clearly, we're going to have to be very cognizant of what bills we put through that have any budget ask. And we're going to have to be, like Representative Barkas said, it's going to have to be priorities. We're going to have to work on that. And she gets to be part of that group that tells us yes and no. And I'm afraid it will be a lot of no. I did want to say, there's another thing we got in on MFTE, because you're a local jurisdiction. We've got the review from the Commerce Department and Finance, which is really interesting. As of to date, we have put in 61,000 housing units through MFTE statewide. 11,000 of them are affordable. In Olympia alone, over 50% market rate and otherwise of our housing was built through MFTE. So 50%, so market rate
Wow.
and affordable. And then Spokane came in, and we've all been asking about tax shift, right? What's the tax shift if you do MFTE? The Commerce admitted they don't have the numbers because they're working on an audit system for even places like Olympia. We turn in reports, but we don't know the true audit every time, and that's coming. But Spokane believes it's about a 1.5% shift because they've built over 465 million assets through MFTE, but they think it's about a 4.5 million tax shift. So that's about what we're looking at. But that's just one jurisdiction. The other thing that Shoreline is the longest MFTE in the state, has come, they've showed all the numbers they're getting, and it's amazing how many they built. But what was really interesting is the barriers they're finding now, which is services, getting restaurants in there, so the conversation about commercial, infrastructure, because some developers can't afford to put sewer and stormwater and run electric lines through the streets. So it's just, there's a lot of information coming out, and basically, Shoreline has said, without a doubt, 100%, developers say they cannot build without things like MFTE. As a matter of fact, they did a map of their city. Areas that did not have MFTE is having almost zero development.
Wow.
Where there's MFTE, they're getting the most development, although 2024 slowed down because of interest rates.
Are you using it here?
We have it in our Midtown. We're starting a conversation that we'll get into more next year about looking at citywide, but we're focusing more on the affordable housing piece of it. We haven't had a conversation about would we do it for non-affordable housing citywide. Maybe there's pockets of area that we would, but it has been successful in our Midtown, and we did find out, according to our Thurston County treasurer, that we thought there wasn't a shift. We thought that it was on hold for that period, and then it comes back on the books. But it sounds like it does get shifted to right away to the rest of the city. Now, that is good for our junior taxing districts, but it does put a tiny burden on the rest of the taxpayers. I don't know, I haven't we haven't seen the numbers of what that actually looks like, but it's a relatively small part of this overall value, assessed value, so it's got to be just pennies, but we'll, yeah.
And the Commerce Department is going to be focusing on that. We got that today. Because this isn't a common question throughout the state. What about the tax shift?
That's a great point, because it's nice to see that data being collected, because I know it was a conversation as we talked about multifamily taxes and how we track it over time as we do more projects and see what that shift is. And so it'd be good to tap into that and see how they're tracking that information.
Yeah.
So
You guys
thank you.
should, Shoreline actually, and King County King County had an intern that went through their MFTE projects, and they're not condoning or approving this thesis work, but it's they're going to send it out to us, and I can send it out to you guys. But Shoreline has done a lot of work, and they are actually saying the biggest need they're seeing right now is workforce.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
about 70% AMI, all the way up to 125, and then more than studios.
It seems like you're building a lot here.
Well, we have a project that is, yes, our Midtown area is finally reaching what we've always wanted to have. We've always wanted more housing there. It just never penciled before. The other interesting thing that I've heard is, so all this is market rate, and so it's the 8-year. Besides 12-year. However, I also having conversations with our Thurston County treasurer. On year 8, if they want to convert a portion of that to, they can use the 12. And so now we're talking about 20 years. That is very attractive on year 8 for that property owner to convert some of those to affordable housing. I mean, that's a deal, right? Like, sign me up for that.
It's getting past the initial
Yeah.
cost, right?
Well, yeah.
That's allowed,
And then there's very little infrastructure that needs to happen to convert those to affordable housing, and you get 12 more. Like, that's a conversation that I think we need to continue to have on anyone that's doing it on an 8-year. If they understand that that's available to them.
Yeah. That'd be an interesting question,
But it
because
went to just 12 years, not another 12.
No, it's 20 total, according to our Thurston County treasurer. Now, there may be something else, but no, it's a 20-year.
I think if you have come in at 12, at least according to what we learned today, you can do an additional 12
Oh, I
on
haven't
top
heard.
of that.
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't know
there-
that.
There is, that's what we talked about, was that you can have, on a 12-year, an extension of 12, and then on the 8-year conversion to get 12
12
more
more.
years. And with the conversion piece, it's not really necessarily replacement, because you always have some level of vacancy. And then also, after 8 years, you're going to want to refresh your units to be competitive in the market. So that gives tools to have that rejuvenation of the units itself, so.
So, love to continue to have that. We're having those conversations right now. I always felt a little weird if it wasn't shifted, that our junior taxing, where all of a sudden the fire department doesn't get the increased assessed value, that schools don't get that. That's always was my hesitation. But now, to hear that it sort of shifted, that makes it, I think, a little more palatable. The other thing I just want to talk to you about, Lisa, and I know you are aware of this, is our third priority, our desperate need for an upgrade animal shelter. I hope the rest of our community has this in their top 3, 2.
I just had it pulled from consent from Olympia, because we were going to pass our legislative agenda on consent so that I could talk to it and add it. And I don't think it'll be a problem.
Okay. I mean, this is, right now it's feeling like this is a Lacey project, and it's not a Lacey project, right? It is a regional project. It's a Thurston County project. And so I think it's just really important for the state to understand that. This is not a Lacey ask. It's a regional ask.
It's a regional responsibility, and I'm hoping that the city of Lacey, who is in jurisdiction for this, will reach out to Tom Barner in the county and put it on their legislative ask as well.
We're working on that, and hopefully also the chamber as well, because this is a big regional issue. If we don't,
Is there any way to move into a different building that already exists?
I think everything is sort of
The-
on the table, but
The assessed space needs, there isn't a building,
There is not.
and the acreage needed to be able to put the building on it and provide the services for the animals is like 3 acres larger than we currently have, I think. So the building and the property is just not, and the building is sort of like Olympia's City Hall on Plum Street.
Yeah.
It's going to take a lot of money just to get occupancy
Yeah.
for a few years, and at that point, you'll have to put a lot more in, and it's.
Yeah, it makes
it's-
zero
it's a-
sense.
It's a money pit, quite frankly. Did I get that right? Okay. I'm right there with it. And just to let you know, the local government, interestingly enough, just is finished the roadmap to Healthy Washington, #3, but the one they're currently working on, which is something I've always wondered as a city council member, is how do you sync between jurisdictions for master plans, GMA, lot, and when they're running lines, and, stormwater, water, sidewalks to nowhere, we share borders between two different cities. And this is actually something that they've got a task force started, should give us a report in December next year, that could actually lead to GMA requirements, to try to make sure that we better sync not only the jurisdictions that are sitting next to each other, but things like school districts and water treatment plants and PUDs and transportation plans, because then you end up with incomplete sidewalks to nowhere. Like our school district just got a grant to build sidewalks, but they hadn't thought to talk to our land use, and finally we're having a conversation so we can put the sidewalk in the right place. But, making that a GMA requirement may come out of this, and I saw the task force, it's great. They have city council members, they have city managers, they have junior taxing districts, they have PUDs, it's quite a good group, and they hopefully will give us some recommendations by next December about that. Like Martin Way, our project on that.
Okay. I know we're running late.
Oh, we are?
Yep. I don't have any priorities except for surviving the fire hose that is whipping me around like fire-ups.
Hang in there. We understand how much work it is for a new member, so we are totally sympathetic. And please continue to reach out to us. When you need anything, you need us to testify, you name it, please reach out, and we're there for you.
Well, I have told the group setting up my office that local constituents and jurisdictions will always have my priority in my office.
Perfect.
I'm kind of biased to city councils.
Wonder why?
Ladies, I just wanted to caution, just be careful of unfunded mandates. Our only recourse is the 1%. It doesn't keep up pace. It's just a real killer for municipalities, not just ours.
Yeah. The state shared revenues portion has consistently, since I've been here for 15 years, has consistently gone down, down, down. It was a much bigger part of our budget. Now it's like, oh, thanks, so.
Budget dust now.
And that is where I think there is a lot of disconnect is, all the services a lot of the services are being provided by cities, and yet we just don't have the resources of the state. I mean, counties are worse off than we are.
What do you would do if you had the authority to if we raised the?
That's a conversation that we need to have. I think you need to put some big bookmarks on that, on where you could spend those dollars. But it's a conversation that we're willing to have and give you some, support on after we have the conversation. Or at least, I just think people expect, if you're going to raise tax dollars, it better go to something that they see and tangible and support. So if it's, public safety, and these are all general fund obligations. And so it's, anything when it comes to our general fund, we need help on. But I think you have to be really specific if you're going to go over the 1%, where are you going to spend that additional revenue? That people can spend it on anything they want, a pet project or something like that. If you put some bookmarks on it, some parameters on it, I think you'll get a lot more support, at least I think from our council.
I know Lisa understands, because you understand the burden of being a council member with it being handed down.
And
then
chair of finance.
We look like the bad people, right, because we're trying to make up that lost revenue. It's difficult for us.
Well, as the finance advisor for the city of Olympia said, over 10 years, the city of Olympia has lost $10 million in our budget capacity.
Wow. Brian, you got something real quick? I know they gotta go.
Yeah, if I can have just one more minute, and I know staff needs to switch this room around. We do have some materials for you. They have been emailed to you, so you don't have to worry about paper copies. This is pretty expansive. It gives you some great insight into a broad base of where we're thinking on some ideas, so as the myriad of issues come up. And then two pieces of information or items that we'll be looking for some support that we didn't get to is the Regional Training Center. We have a really unique opportunity. And as a local community, we've actually stepped up and created the facility for you. And what we need is around $1 million to move forward with actually offering a class regionally here to support that's the BLE.
Appropriations, not capital.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. Sure, it's okay. It's okay. And then lastly on our item,
I wrote down capital. Anyway. I'm glad you clarified.
The mayor highlighted that Midtown has been activated, and we're really looking at an opportunity to make Huntheimer Park like a better and more robust facility to kind of meet the new demands of individuals living in that area. We've got a great design we'd be happy to share with you. It has water feature, new plaza, and so that is a capital request. It's $200,000, and we can follow up with more material on that as well.
So we just got the form.
Yes, and we have the form as well already, so thank you.
Okay,
Your LA is fantastic.
thank you.
And then check out AWC's ledge.
Oh, yeah, we're supporting.
You guys are in line, a lot of them.
Yes, we're support AWCs as well. Also, the South Sound Military Communities Partnership is a big one, too. I haven't seen their latest information, but we're always on ourselves with SSMCP.
Their breakfast meetings.
Yeah.
They're helpful.
Okay,
Thanks, Beth.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, we have reached the end of our special work session. So without objection, I'll call this meeting adjourned until we go to our next work session. So keep it classy, Lacey.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.